there is an AI center that has popped up in Memphis, Tennessee. That is courtesy of our friend Elon Musk, I believe. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about that?
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but it's such an important story because it's indicative of what these large AI companies are trying to do. And I think just large companies in general, they're trying to flex their muscle to avoid scrutiny by the public and to avoid government regulations in order to make a lot of money. And so
Yeah,
there is a facility in Memphis, Tennessee. If you don't know about Memphis, it's a wonderful city. It is a city with a pretty sizable black population,
yeah,
and that's important to remember for this because a lot of this has to do with something called environmental racism. So XAI is a company owned by Elon Musk. I believe it's associated with X.com, formerly Twitter, should still be Twitter. And XAI is basically Grok, which is their version of I guess ChatGPT. It's their AI chatbot situation. And so XAI is building what they or has built, excuse me, it's already built and operating what they term as the world's largest supercomputer in kind of the outskirts of Memphis in a neighborhood called Boxtown. More
right.
Perfect Union did a really, really great mini doc on this, and I would highly encourage everybody to go to YouTube and watch it. But basically, what this is a giant, massive data center. And if you know anything about these AI data centers, they take a ton of energy to run, and that's the
Yeah,
crux of this. And so I wanted to say something because Elon Musk literally called this facility, this project, Project Colossus, which was named after a movie about a supercomputer that becomes sentient and takes over the world. So, if that is enough of a context setting for you, basically, it is burning enough methane to power a small city with no pollution controls. What happened with this is they came in and apparently made a deal with the city and the state without really going through the normal public channels to be able to build this large facility and just ended up building it without having to file the necessary permits or environmental regulations with the EPA, with the state government, with the local government, get the necessary permits. And as somebody who has worked in local permitting for renewable energy projects before,
yeah,
it takes a lot to get permits. Okay. It is not something that is normally very easy and you just do it by signing a piece of paper. And so they were able to do this without going through the regular local air permits and all this stuff. And basically, what is happening is people that live around that community are getting sick because of the pollution.
right.
And to say that there is so much pollution coming out of this plant, this they have 35 methane turbines powering 420 megawatts of electricity, which is enough to power 300,000 homes just for this one data center. Okay, so you have 35 methane turbines pushing out pollution to the world around these majority black neighborhoods, relatively poor neighborhoods. So they of course did not know this was happening, didn't have a say in it until it was already built. And people are credit to the Memphis community and the grassroots organizers because they are raising holy hell about this.
Yeah,
But it just goes to show you that you throw around enough money and you get to do whatever you want. And in Tennessee, a lot of political capital is put towards economic development. And this project was sold as a huge boon to Memphis, which, if you don't know, Memphis, it's a big city, but it's one that's been struggling.
yeah.
Nashville has been blowing up and Memphis has been kind of shrinking in the shadow for a long time. And so I think if you were to be generous, the community leaders would say that this would be a boon for the community. But really, I think there's a lot of dollars and cents wrapped up into this. And Elon Musk coming through to a community that he knows nothing about, steamrolling them and getting to do whatever he wants. And it's
Yeah.
causing problems with people, making them sick. It's just terrible. And I really think that people need to pay attention to stuff like this because it's a harbinger of what's to come.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's so many different angles to go on here because not only do you have the pollution coming out of this particular area, but it is something that's almost indicative to this whole entire like region of the country. I mean, you have
Yeah.
so many different
Hmm.
cancer alleys around that area in like western Mississippi down into like Louisiana. There's just all of these chemical plants that are in these like predominantly black neighborhoods where these pockets of just cancer, just I mean, people just like getting cancer all over these different areas, and I am just absolutely disgusted seeing the fact that these things just keep happening again and again and again. And the fact that you were mentioning that there's like basically like no like permitting process that went into this, they basically just were able to just like sign it off, give it to Elon Musk. We we constantly hear the phrase, like, billionaires should not exist, on
Hmm.
like in like leftist dialogue, right now in the political sphere. But it's moments like this that really, I think, kind of hammer that home. We have people in our country that have so much power that they can just essentially go into certain communities, write their own rules, and there's no recourse that the people who live there really have for any of this, right? I mean, if the people had any say over this, struggling or not, they would have never have authorized this thing to be placed in their community, and
No.
yet it's there anyway, right?
Yeah.
And how many people are going to be sick now because of it? And how many people can even afford the healthcare costs that come with getting sick from this type of pollution? And this is also another, again, in a state that doesn't really push any kind of like real like climate change initiatives either. So you have the perfect storm of people being too poor to really fight back to do anything about it. When they get sick, they're not going to be able to afford their medical bills, and there's no one really speaking up on behalf of them in their local governments or in their city government or in their state governments because they were kind of all in bed with Elon Musk to begin with. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a perfect storm of corruption. And I feel for the people of Memphis, Tennessee. But unfortunately, this is not a story just about Memphis because this kind of thing is happening all over the place. And it feels like as we go forward, we are going to see more and more of this, because this really isn't just an AI story. This is just a corporate power story. And how many more cities will be subject to centers like this in the future?
Yeah. You're right. And, it shows that it doesn't take much for them to get what they want. I mean,
Yeah.
in Memphis, like I don't know all the details of this, but I know that like the Chamber of Commerce was behind it, the mayor was behind it, and honestly, you get those two entities and maybe the Shelby County government, and that's all you really need. And so when Southern Environmental Law Center filed records requests for this for the county government for Shelby County government, they were like there weren't any permits pulled for this project. There weren't any air permits pulled for this because if there were, they knew that they would get denied. And something
Yeah.
else that's really important about this story they didn't mention is that throughout the process, XAI has been lying to the public. So when they were asked questions about like, oh, how many methane turbines do you really have? They said, oh, we only have X amount. I don't remember how much it was, but it was like less than 10, I think. So
Yeah.
then SELC hired a photographer to fly over top and photograph, and they found that they had 35 of them. And so they came back and they said, "You have 35." And they're like, "Well, we don't run all of them. The other ones are for, emergency backup." So they took a thermal camera out there and did the same thing. They found that like 32 out of the 35 were operating. So these are bad faith actors who are trying to get in there and make a quick buck and at the same time destroying these communities. And you mentioned like these communities where they're cancer ridden. I mean, I know personally from that because I grew up in Parkersburg, West Virginia, where DuPont's Washington Works plant was polluting our water with PFOAs for I think 20, 30 years when they were making Teflon.
Yeah.
And so these places they're happening throughout the country in places where a, people are not aware, and B, they don't have the political capital or power to fight it. And I think that
Yeah.
that's the case here too. And it's a shame. It's a shame. It's a real shame. And I think that people should be aware of this because you're right. It's not limited to AI, although these AI companies are really at the forefront of these massive data centers, and it's just going to be worse and worse. And so I don't know. It's something. This is a story that is an important story, and it's one that is a blueprint for what other companies are actually probably doing as we speak.
Yeah, and I would love to see something on the national level done about this because there should not be ever a case where companies are able to do something like this and just kind of get away with it because these things don't just affect these communities either. So you want to talk about like, oh, states' rights, this, that, and the other. But how often do we see the effects of things like this spilling over into other states? Memphis is a border city. Are this also going to affect people that are over in Missouri, over in Arkansas as well, down in
Mississippi,
Mississippi? So I mean,
guaranteed,
like,
guaranteed.
right. So I mean, like at this point, shouldn't these things be handled at a national level? Shouldn't these things be handled at a federal level? If you're going to be doing things, I mean, we're talking about anything environmental in general. You are spewing methane into the air. That's going to be dispersed around so many different areas around Memphis. I just think that these types of centers should not be handled in such a kind of like loosely way. I mean, that they can just be put up without any oversight whatsoever. I mean, what are going to be the domino effects that all of the people in the surrounding communities are going to have to deal with for years to come now because of the greed of Elon Musk and the indifference of a few people in that community who kind of just greenlit this process and didn't care about the repercussions that were going to happen later on.
Yeah, no, you're very correct, and it's going to take people in leadership and elected office to actually do something about it. And I will give credit. Representative Justin Pearson has been
Yeah.
he was one of the Tennessee Three, if you all remember. He has been leading the charge against this, and he's been doing a really great job of raising awareness on it. But he can't do it by himself, and so I mean, I agree. I think that there needs to be something done at the federal level, and there also just needs to be more collective outrage because Elon Musk is going to do this again if he's not already doing it.